All right, take it away.
Good morning and welcome to the Wednesday, November 10th, 2021 meeting of the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners. I am the board vice chair, Commissioner Claire Hall, presiding today in the absence of Chair Doug Hunt, who is excused from today's meeting. However, Commissioner Katie Jacobson is also online and the two of us do constitute a quorum. First up is the adoption of our consent calendar. Routine items or items that have been discussed at prior meetings. Staff or commissioners do have an opportunity to request that any of these items be pulled for individual consideration. If there is no such motion, I would entertain a motion for approval of the consent calendar as presented.
I move to adopt the consent calendar as it is presented.
I'll second the motion, and all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it is approved. We now move on to our decision and action item. This is a request for a response time waiver and review of Ambulance Service Review Committee recommendations of addition of BLS ambulance for PWA, that's Pacific West Ambulance, and South Lincoln Ambulance. And according to the agenda, this presentation will be by Jeff Mathia, General Manager for Pacific West Ambulance. Is Jeff on the line?
I don't see Jeff on the line. I just sent him a quick email. Let me give him a call if you guys want to move forward on the agenda and we can get him on here.
Let's do that. We'll move on to our first discussion and information item. Do we have Assessor Joe Davidson on the line?
Yes, good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine, Joe. This is distribution of funds from House Bill 2021, House Bill 5006 for a grant to counties for the reimbursement of lost property tax revenues related to the 2020 wildfires. You have provided us with a memorandum and material in our meeting packet, but could you introduce this to us, please? Go over the salient features.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me again, Joe Davidson, County Assessor. And so this is a grant concept through House Bill 5006 that was adopted in the 2021 regular session. And part of the funding bill provided $23.2 million to the Department of Revenue to distribute as grants to the individual wildfire counties. There's 8 total. And I was actually part of the effort behind coming up with that number. The governor's office was looking for to create a stabilization fund for the wildfire counties. And they were looking for a number for not only for the 2021 tax year, but subsequent tax years. So I had numbers for Lincoln County as far as value losses, and was able to translate that to property tax revenue loss. And so I surveyed the other 7 counties, and basically they did the same thing. They had kind of rough numbers. This was early in 2021, and generated numbers for the 2021 tax year. And then we basically inflated that number for subsequent years, 3%, to kind of mimic the idea that had that value been on the roll for those subsequent years, it would be growing at 3% under Measure 50. And so that's roughly where the $23.2 million came from. It's kind of a worst case scenario, assuming no rebuilding took place. They wanted to ensure that enough money was in there for the local taxing districts that were affected by property tax revenue loss due to the damage. So that's kind of the general history of where the number came from. And now it's sitting in a fund available to the counties, but we do need to apply for it annually. There was a supplemental budget report to House Bill 5006, which outlined the distribution amounts in detail for the 8 counties. And I believe I've got that in attachment A, which you can see for Lincoln is a total of $208,178 That's for the 2021 tax year, and that's meant to reimburse local taxing districts for the refunds that went out to individual property owners due to the damage that they incurred. And it gets a little bit tricky with once Lincoln County applies for this grant and receives it, then we're responsible for actually distributing that money out to the affected taxing districts. However, the first year, 2021, is a little bit different because the relief and the tax revenue loss to the districts came in the form of refunds to property owners. So that came out of the unsegregated account. Basically, think of a large pool of property tax revenue that is then distributed out to all the countywide taxing districts. If you take out any of that money, you're affecting everyone, all the districts countywide. So really for this first payout, we're just going to be replenishing that money in that unsegregated account, which will then naturally reimburse those affected districts. For the subsequent years, and I will be coming in front of the board again, likely in 2022, to do the same process for subsequent year grants. And those will have a little bit different distribution because for like this year, my office, our appraisers have actually adjusted the values for those properties. And so that has more of a localized impact to the taxing districts whose boundaries overlap the properties in the Otis area only. So for instance, a property in Otis isn't going to be paying taxes to the city of Newport or the Toledo Pool. They're only going to be paying taxes to those districts whose boundaries overlap their property. And so we have a different distribution schedule for the subsequent year payouts. And I've included that here too, just for informational purposes only. But this first payout of $208,178 will be distributed countywide to all the taxing districts. I do want to mention too, kind of on a side note, that there was additional efforts in 2021 to provide relief to individual property owners. That was through House Bill 2341. And I was a part of that too. There was a large effort to provide additional relief to property owners and ensure that everyone received relief who experienced damage due to the wildfires. And so we were able to accomplish that. We partnered up with some local representatives, primarily Representative Marsh down in Jackson County, and had a lot of meetings, testified, got that passed. That ensured relief to everybody. And it also waived the application requirement for those property owners so that it was more of an automatic process to get them refunds. So that provided additional relief to property owners, but on the flip side, it meant less revenue to the taxing districts. And so this is kind of the missing piece. This House Bill 5006 and the funding that's a part of it ensures state funding to reimburse our local taxing districts for those losses too. So that's kind of the basic idea behind it. I'm here to answer whatever questions you might have about this funding bill or any of the details. So.
Thank you, Joe. I've got a couple of questions for starters. I may have missed it, but in reading through the materials, it looks like this is a 3-year program. Is that correct?
That's correct. The 23.2 million was actually an estimate based on the first tax year, which was 2021, and then 3 additional tax years. However, because we're talking about the budget cycle, the biennium 21 through 23, we are only talking about current year through 23-24. And so, and I'm still waiting, we've gotten guidance on this first year. I've got that in attachment B. That was a guidance from the Department of Revenue that we received. Details the application process for this year. And we were told we will receive additional guidance similar to this for next year, which will cover 21-22 tax year losses and reimbursements. And then we still don't have detail yet on whether that will be it, and we'll be able to take care of the remaining balance on this next application, or whether this will truly be an annual process for the next couple of years.
One other thing, and then I will yield the floor to Commissioner Jacobson if she has questions. I mean, I think you've made it pretty clear, but just want people to understand this isn't any new or additional revenue for us or the other taxing districts, but it is replacement revenue for the lost property tax revenue due to property damaged or destroyed by wildfires. Correct?
That is correct. Yes, this is truly meant to just replace that lost revenue. It's really revenue that was lost that went back to the property owners in the form of refunds, and we're just replacing that to kind of replenish that lost revenue to our local taxing districts.
And I just think one thing that might be good to share with people, talking in round numbers, out of this $208,000. 46,000 of it goes to county general fund. Actually, the largest single recipient is the Lincoln County School District at more than 80,000 for their general fund, 10,000 for bond funds. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner Hall, just to correct, I'm sorry, I probably confused things by throwing in two distribution schedules.
Oh, okay.
It's really the first one where you've got more districts on the list.
I see. Okay.
That will be the distribution for this first payout. I was trying to explain that. I know it's confusing, but basically all the districts countywide were impacted by the refunds that were given out this last year. So we're just putting money back into the unsegregated account to reimburse those districts. It was more of a buffered impact, because it was countywide. It's the following year that it'll be more of a localized distribution to just those districts in the Otis area.
I see. Well, thank you for clarifying that. And Commissioner Jacobson, questions, comments?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to say that, there was a lot of these smaller districts up in the Otis area that were really impacted by the fire itself. And I don't think it's something that people understand, but like, for example, we've had a lot of damage to our roads from fire recovery, but those districts then had a decrease in taxes because the properties, of course, were devalued. And so, this is like a really important piece, puzzle piece, kind of a recovery plan, because a lot of those smaller districts, like I said, had damage, to their district. And then, saw kind of declining revenues. So kind of bringing this resource back to them is really important because they're still struggling with some of those impacts. And so, I just kind of wanted to say and point out that I think when we think about, fire recovery, we think about rebuilding homes and cleaning up debris and, that sort of thing, which is certainly very important. We don't maybe think about some of this kind of stuff. But this is like really important work. And so I just wanted to say, thank you to Joe for not just bringing this to us today, but all the work you did at the legislative level, trying to get these bills passed and the funding behind them, because like I said, this is a really important piece to that recovery plan and trying to put communities back together again. I think it's something that could have easily been overlooked, and it's not just about money coming back to the county general fund, but again, a lot of these really small districts that rely on that and that suffered damage themselves and costs involved with the fire. So anyways, just thank you for your hard work on this issue, and I'm glad that it's kind of circling back around and hopefully kind of being put to bed or put to bed-ish.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Jacobson. I completely agree, and it was great to be part of the process too, behind these efforts. That really as you can see, the major impact is this year as far as the property tax revenue loss to more of a local level. So this next application that we'll be going through, probably sometime in 2022, will be a larger piece and a larger impact, I guess, benefit to those local taxing districts. So I'll keep you posted as we move forward and we get further guidance on that. But thank you.
So Joe, to formally apply, are we going to need a resolution from the BOC, or how's that going to work?
Yes, so this is just a discussion item, and then I believe, you've got the AOC conference coming up, but the deadline on getting this application to the Department of Revenue is fastly approaching. It's December 1st.
Okay.
So we're kind of on a time crunch, but I believe we can squeeze in a decision item on the 24th. And so
Okay.
I'll work on getting a draft resolution to you before then.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Commissioner Jacobson?
Yeah, I guess my only question I had is, maybe it's a legal counsel question, do we actually need to come back and make a resolution, or does consent calendar?
Yeah,
work for this?
I mean, you actually need to make a decision on it. And so we can bring it back. We'll bring it back on the 24th. Joe has already a sample resolution from another county. And so we can put that together and provide it to you guys on the 24th. But it would have to be a decision. Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right. Do we have our presenter for the ambulance service requests available yet?
Good morning, Commissioners. My apologies. I had troubles getting logged on, but I am here.
Okay, Jeff. And again, on our agenda, this says response time waiver and ASRC, Ambulance Service Review Committee recommendations of addition of BLS ambulance for Pacific West Ambulance and South Lincoln Ambulance. And Jeff, if you would introduce yourself and take it away.
All right. Well, good morning, Commissioners and general public. My name is Jeff Mathai. I'm the General Manager with Pacific West Ambulance. And I came to the Board of Commissioners last month and really wanted to give the Commissioners and the public a heads up of some of the struggles that not only our ambulance service is experiencing, but ambulance services not only in Oregon, but across the country. Pretty much all related to the COVID-19 pandemic and a nationwide shortage of paramedics. So we have been fairly lucky, so to say, that we weren't impacted too badly by it, but it's now kind of hit us. So I wanted to give the Commissioners, last time I saw them, just a heads up of what's going on, what we were trying to do about it to try to hit it off the pass, so to say. Since then, I've met with the Ambulance Service Review Committee, the ASRC for Lincoln County, which is our group that kind of makes recommendations to the Board of Commissioners on how our ambulance service is doing or things that we need to change and so on. So since that last meeting, we did draft up a couple of recommendations. One was that we were asking both for Pacific West Ambulance and South Lincoln Ambulance, which I am speaking on behalf of Chief Petrick today, to have our response times waived as part of the contract temporarily starting October 1st through December 31st of this year. Though we'll still report those times and still have that information made public, we know we're experiencing delays in response. Not huge, humongous delays, but again, for example, we have delays of 2 or 3 minutes past what we should be. And also with having the number of available ambulances being reduced both from staffing shortages and the sheer call volume, it is taking us a little bit longer to get to 911 calls. The other request that we're making is the ability to staff a basic life support ambulance. And what that is, an advanced life support ambulance is staffed by a paramedic and EMT. They respond to all 911 calls. A basic life support ambulance is staffed with at minimum 1 EMT, but generally 2 EMTs. And they can respond to any type of call, but they can only transport very low priority type calls. So in Lincoln County, we use a priority system 1 through 4, 1 being a critical patient or critical call, to a 3 and 4, which is generally a non-critical low priority type call that generally doesn't involve a light and siren response. It's a call that can generally wait beyond the normal response time to receive service. By using a basic life support ambulance for these types of calls, we can actually leave a paramedic ambulance in service available for higher priority calls. This BLS ambulance, I want to be clear, is not to replace an ALS ambulance. We will still strive to make sure we're providing a good number of ambulances that the system requires, staffed with paramedic and EMT. Right now, we do meet our minimum contractual requirement. That's 1 ambulance per ambulance service area with staffing a 4-day, 4-night. There are a couple times where we have been staffed level 3 at night, meaning 3 ambulances, but I've utilized our North End partner, North Lincoln Fire ambulance to keep us at that level 4 until we got back to an appropriate level. We have used the BLS ambulance with the blessing of ASRC to try it out, see how it works, and it's been very successful. They've gone on calls that were very non-critical. In a couple of cases, patient was able to be treated in place and not need a ride to the hospital, saving a hospital bed, and again, a paramedic ambulance for a higher priority call. But this BLS ambulance also can take patients home from the hospital, transfer them to skilled nursing facilities from the hospital. So basically, we're freeing up hospital beds using this type of ambulance instead of sending this paramedic EMT ambulance out of the county for 3 to 5 hours, and thus reducing the number of ambulances we have available. So that's what our request is and what is being presented before the board today. I know there's our request letter from both Pacific West Ambulance and South Lincoln Ambulance, along with the ASRC's recommendation letter was in the packet. So that's what I'm asking the board today, is to accept those recommendations from the Ambulance Service Review Committee and the request from Pacific West Ambulance and South Lincoln Ambulance.
Thank you. County Counsel Kristen Yule works with the ASRC as our liaison to them. I'm just wondering if you have any input at this time.
Yeah, actually, I'm not the liaison. That would be Jenny Damaris. I just serve as legal counsel staff. Yeah, I think this is a reasonable request given the, the situation as Mr. Mathia explained. I think they are meeting response times in many instances, but there have been occasions that they can't, and I think this is a reasonable request. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Jacobson, do you have any questions or comments or thoughts on the request?
Yeah, I do have 2 questions, first for Jeff and then one for Kristen. So I know, I think maybe 2 months ago or something like that, the time kind of seems to blend together these days, but we had a request from Depot Bay Fire to purchase, or I think they were trading for an ambulance or something. And I believe they thought they could do a mutual aid agreement and, and provide help where needed. I think they thought maybe they had PacWest's ambulance support on that, and they ended up not. And I think that kind of project dying, or they're not pursuing it anymore. And now we're being asked for a waiver on response time. So I guess I'm just kind of confused, if we're having a response time issue, why that service wasn't needed, or maybe you could just comment on that.
Sure. So this conversation actually came up late last year, I believe November, December of last year. We began talks on it, and we had heard, Pacific West Ambulance had heard nothing from Depot Bay Fire other than a meeting to kind of see where we're at in March of this year. And then we heard nothing further. Until it came from the until they tried to present it to the Board of Commissioners requesting approval to have an ambulance, and it caught us off guard. We had no clue they were at that point yet. And really, our response times are more centered towards Toledo Selects and Newport than it is the North End. With our mutual aid agreement that I have with North Lincoln Fire, that has worked very well. They normally would, in a given year, would transport anywhere from 13 to 22 times. This year we have used them but not excessively. I think we're at 42 transports for North Lincoln Fire. And where they've come in handy in helping us out and the community out is when, especially Lincoln City, would have 3 to 4 back-to-back emergency calls, sometimes within a 45-minute time frame. So it does not make sense for me to have that additional ambulance available in Depot Bay at the expense it would cost Depot Bay to maintain that ambulance. We supply the fire departments supply as far as things they would use on scene on a medical call and stuff. But to maintain an ambulance for a city that has very small call volume, there is some question about the response time requirement for the Depot Bay, Glen Beach area. I know they're listing it at 12 minutes, but Glen Beach and Depot Bay are actually 2 separate zip codes. And by definition of the contract, they should be 20-minute response time zones. So that's something I am going to be bringing to the ASRC for discussion to see if that needs to change. But having the additional ambulance in Depot Bay with our North Lincoln partner, really, there's no additional benefit to that. For as I hate to use the word often, but for as much as we use the ambulance from North Lincoln, it just doesn't make sense for us to have them have their ambulance. And how, I'm really questioning how are they going to afford to run an ambulance in Depot Bay. It's a spendy venture. What I am looking at is trying to get an ambulance positioned up in the Toledo area so we can provide better response up there for Toledo and Siletz. And that's where an additional ambulance makes sense. We have a good partner with Yachats down south, South Lincoln Ambulance. So we have good coverage there. So many times, we cover Yachats will cover us. So there's a very good working relationship there. So if there's a need where I really need it is to look at something for the east end of the county, Siletz and Toledo. And I will add, I'm still talking to Depot Bay about an ambulance, but it's a slow moving process.
Okay, thank you. That actually does help clarify quite a bit. So appreciate that. And I guess my second question is actually for Council Ewell. I believe we have this under a decision, an action item, but it kind of feels to me while we had a general update previously by Jeff, there was not a specific request in that. So does this actually need to come back so we can receive public comment on this, or can we adopt today?
So I think when Jeff gave the previous report, he did explain that there were response times delays. But now that a specific request is made, I think that does make sense. I think I would bring this back on the 24th for official action and approval of the response times that he's proposing.
Thank you. That's kind of how I was feeling too.
Yeah.
We needed to bring this back.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, if you're comfortable with that, Commissioner Jacobson, I am too. So we will have this as a decision item on the 24th. Thank you for your time, Jeff.
Thank you, commissioners, for your time. Appreciate you.
Okay. And we'll move back into discussion and information items. And is Public Works Director Roy Kenyon available?
I am available.
Thank you. Okay, this item is initiation of vacation proceedings for a portion of Northeast Avery Street between Northeast 113th and the first edition of Beverly Beach. Roy, fill us in, please.
Good morning, commissioners. I know it seems like it's been kind of a stream of these petitions to vacate lately. And just a quick explanation of that. Back in the spring of last year, when the pandemic started, the board halted public hearings at that time. And it was roughly about a year and a half before we actually started having public hearings again. And in that time, I was still receiving petitions. And so we kind of have a backlog that we're working through right now. And this basically is the next one in line. I am in possession of a petition to vacate. As you said, the portion of Northeast Avery Street between Northeast 113th and the first addition to Beverly Beach. The petitioner, Roger Reese, has met all the requirements of the petition. I am in possession of signature sheets for basically 3 out of the 4 adjoining properties. And Casey, if you'd like to scroll up to that picture, it'll probably be more descriptive. The white hashed area is the area that the petition is requesting to vacate. As you can see, there are 3 lots to the east or to the right side of that vacation, and there is 1 large lot to the west or to the left of that. And like I said, we have signature sheets for 3 of those 4. It just happens that the big lot to the west actually is one of the signature sheets, and so that helps them actually meet the requirement of 60% of the land that abuts the area petition to be vacated. This is the first step. This is only the initiation phase. What ORS 368341 basically states that in order for, after a county receives a petition to vacate, that in order for this to proceed, basically the Board of Commissioners needs a request from the Lincoln County Public Works Director, myself, to address, basically to instruct me to prepare the report that would go along with this petition. And that would then be presented to you at a public hearing later on. The public hearing date has not been set yet. If I'm instructed to prepare the report, part of that also is to set the public hearing date and make sure that all of the notifications to all of the adjacent property owners is done. And that's basically about a 5-week process. State law says that I have to have service out 30 days before the public hearing. And then if you add in a couple extra days for this and that, we're looking at least at 5 weeks out. So I guess at this point in time, I would try to answer any questions that you have. Like I said, this is the first part of the process. It's only the initiation. I haven't prepared a report, but I do have some background information, so I can probably answer whatever questions you have to ask.
If I could start things off, just basically, what is the reason behind the request to vacate this portion?
The reasons are, as stated by the petitioner, that the 30-foot road, which is that area that is marked, would be cost prohibitive to develop due to major elevation differences, including a deep ravine. And what they're referring to is at the north end, or the upper end of this vacation, is actually a fairly significant drop off. I believe that most likely when this area in Beverly Beach was developed, as Avery Street came down from the north, as you can see in the picture, the orange line kind of ends at some vegetation. Well, it ends there because it basically drops off into a ravine, and it was not possible for the road to continue on at that point in time. So moving on, it says that all the tax lots remain accessible via other established roads. That meaning that the 3 tax lots that actually have houses on them that are adjacent to this area to be vacated are actually accessed off of Benton Street, which is the street to the east of those lots. Also, it says vacating the 30-foot road easement would then increase the size of each existing adjacent tax lot, which equates to additional tax revenue. In fact, the property owners of tax lot 3309, which I believe is the one to the far south, a desire to construct an approximate 660 square foot garage shop, which is only possible with the acquisition of the 15-foot additional land that this petition to vacate provides. And when they talk about the 15 feet of additional land, that is because that right of way is 30 feet. And if the petition was successful and the Board of Commissioners approved the request, that right of way would be basically divided down the middle in that, and then each tax lot would then acquire that half of that right of way, or the 15 feet.
Commissioner Jacobson, questions or comments?
No further questions from me. You kind of answered, or you kind of asked what I was going to ask. So
Okay.
nothing further.
Council Ewell, if we are in agreement to have Mr. Kenyon go ahead with the preparing the report, do we need a formal order, or can it just be by board vote procedurally? What's the next step?
Chair Hall, I worked with.
Oh, Jerry. Okay.
Yeah, Mr.
Councilor
Kenyon
Ibbett.
on this. Yeah.
Yes.
And so I think the plan would be that next week it can go on the consent calendar. There would be an order directing the Public Works Director, Roy Kenyon, to well, actually, what would go on the agenda for next week would be an order directing Roy Kenyon to do a report
Mhm.
and to initiate the process. I think that your hearing would be sometime in December, given the timelines. There's 3 different types of notices that need to be done, and the service notice is the longest of 30 days. So, so the process would be initiated in writing next week if you go ahead and direct Mr. Kenyon to proceed.
Okay, and actually that would be the following week, Wednesday, November 24th meeting.
You're right.
Because we've canceled next week's meeting, but
You're right.
Commissioner Jacobson, are you comfortable with directing staff, Mr. Kenyon and staff, to bring that order back for our November 24th meeting?
Yes, I'm comfortable with that.
I am too. So Roy, as Captain Picard would say on Star Trek, make it so.
And I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we move along to reports. And first up, the Echo Mountain Fire update. Commissioner Jacobson and Public Information Officer Miller.
Well, actually, hopefully before he is gone for good, I was going to put Mr. Kenyon back on the spot.
Roy, did we
He's
lose you
still
already?
there.
Darn it. Roy, he's still there. Okay.
Surprise, Roy. And I was hoping maybe you could just, I know we have some good news to share about roads. So I was hoping you could just fill us in on where we are at with road funding.
I will. Once again, Roy Kenyon, Lincoln County Public Works Director, and Commissioner Jacobson, I think, has been doing the heavy lifting on this stuff. I've just been riding her coattails, but we have made some progress. And where we're at now with the road repair work up there in the Otis Fire area is, one, we, as in the Lincoln County Public Works, has put together a scope of work for kind of an overall maintenance of the existing system up there in the area. And it appears as if we are going to have some funding coming in. I have been contacted by ODOT, several representatives of ODOT, and we are going to be able to access some of the what they call the Lawnmower Fund. And it's actually there. It appears as if it's most likely going to be about $500,000. And what the Lawnmower Fund is it's kind of a side fund that comes from gas tax monies. And if you go to a gas station and go to fill up, seems like more times than not, there's somebody there pumping gas into a gas can for lawnmower use, power tool use, whatever the use is, but it's not going into the vehicle. Well, they have a formula that basically determines kind of how much fuel use goes to these power tools or whatever. And so the gas tax that's collected off of that amount does not go to the road system. It goes into the separate fund. And so it looks like we're going to have access to some of that money to go towards work on actually roads in these public roads in the Otis fire area. Where we're at in the process is ODOT is currently working on kind of an amendment to our existing IGA that we have with ODOT. Early on in the fire cleanup, Lincoln County entered into an intergovernmental agreement with ODOT for many things, but one of the major things was debris cleanup. And so instead of reinventing the wheel here, we're just going to try to amend that IGA. It'll come back most likely in front of the board again for further approval, but that IGA would then allow the county to receive this funding that then we can use towards the work that needs to be done on the road system and the drainage system up in the fire area. Also, we are in the process of trying to get some engineering work done, some preliminary engineering work done, something that will give us basically quantities and cost of what we're looking at doing so that we have an idea when we go to hire a contractor to do the work, kind of what we're looking at. That funding actually is a separate funding, and it is, I got it here somewhere. I wasn't prepared to speak. Thanks, Katie.
Business Oregon funding.
Yeah, the
I'll save you a
Municipal
little bit.
Wildfire Assistance Program.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we have some of that money that we're going to tap into to help with the technical assistance side of the project. So things are starting to come together. Not sure exactly what the timeline is, but we can definitely see movement, and we're hoping sometime within the next month that we're off and running. Don't know when the majority of the work is going to get done. Unfortunately, December and January is really not a good time to do the work. But what I've considered doing is trying to address the issues that need addressed immediately now, taking care of what needs to be taken care of now, with the idea that as we get further into the new year and weather straightens out a little bit, that we'll be able to do the overall project. So that's kind of where we're at for right now.
Thank you, Roy. I'm just really excited that we finally have some resources to put into roads there. And we've had some emails from constituents actually in the last few weeks that are experiencing, some of those issues from rains and stuff. So thanks for all your work on that. That's probably our biggest update for this week, but I'll check in with Casey and see if he has anything else to add.
Greetings. Well, and I want to say to, underscore what Roy said, Katie, you have been doing so much heavy lifting on this, and I can attest for how hard you have beat this drum about roads. There have been some times when you've had to be very direct with people, and but I appreciate it because look what it's resulting in. So that's great to finally see those.
Well, I will say the drum is not done being beaten, because while $500,000 is awesome, I can say with confidence that I think as we get the engineering report back, $500,000 is probably not going to solve all our problems. So you probably will hear me beat my drum some more.
I'm sure.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll just keep hammering on the drum, right? Katie, Claire, I just wanted to add that I realize we don't have a commissioners meeting next week, I believe, due to AOC.
That's correct.
Yeah, Jeff Mathia did schedule to come to us from Department of Human Services to give us an update on disaster case management. So I'll reach out to him and see if we can reschedule that. And otherwise, I would say, echo what I said last week, which is if individuals in our county are interested in, being involved with disaster preparation, hazards, if that's something that interests you, our long-term recovery group is going to continue to be looking for volunteers from the community who would like to work in that area. So if preparing this community for future disasters is something that you're interested in, then keep your ear out for that. And on the county's website, we have a link to the long-term recovery group. You can take a look at their website, see what kinds of things they're working on. You could reach out to me, to us, and we'll certainly provide you the information. I would imagine if you wanted to attend one of those meetings and see the type of work they're doing, you can do that. So I think it's a good mission, and we're looking for people into the future to keep us at the ready. So that's about all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you, Commissioner Jacobson. And now it's time for our weekly update on COVID-19 and vaccination efforts. And our acting public health director, Florence Portal. Florence, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
Okay, so brief reports today. So here's what we're seeing in terms of COVID cases. So we're still seeing a decline statewide, which is really good news. I think we just went just below 1,000 cases a day, which is really good, coming from over 3,000. In Lincoln County, I'm not sure what it's doing right now. It was steadily declining. And it's been a few weeks now that it's kind of plateauing and possibly going back up. So we're watching it closely because, as you know, at this time last year, even though we were in a different context and situation, we started seeing an uptick with the holidays over Thanksgiving and then Christmas. So we're just looking and anticipating maybe an uptick, and hopefully not as strong of an uptick than what we saw over the summer. We'll see, and obviously we'll keep you posted. In terms of vaccination, our booster clinics continue to be very successful. Samaritan has a booster clinic starting again on Saturday, and I believe they are going to do adults in the morning and pediatrics in the afternoon. The fairgrounds have been going every Friday. Last week, we vaccinated 470 individuals, which is great. We also added more slots to the clinics we are having on the 12th. The Taft Fire Station has stepped in and is providing Moderna boosters for the Lincoln City area. And we continue our mobile clinics effort. We are still awaiting for total numbers from the partnership with the Yellow Bus and all the spoke missions, but as soon as we get them from there, I'll let you know. But it was really successful, and I'm really glad that people had access to those options. The other great news is that the PEDS vaccines finally made it to us. I believe either on Monday or Tuesday. We've received a limited amount, and we have 600 doses only available to us at this time. Today is the first clinic for kiddos at the elementary schools. So we're starting in Toledo, and I believe we have about 100 kiddos signed up for this clinic. So this is good and exciting and a really good sign. And then we have a lot of other clinics organized next week throughout the school district, and I can tell you what those are. So on Monday, we will be at Yakina View Elementary. On Tuesday and Thursday, we will be at Taft Elementary. On Friday, we will be at Crestview. On the 22nd, on Monday, we'll be at Ocean Lake Elementary, and then After the holidays, on the 3rd, we will be at Sam's Case. So, our partnership with the school district is really strong, and so that really allows us to offer that type of services. County rates are over 82% of eligible folks being vaccinated. And as I mentioned previously, because we're adding a new eligible population to the count, that is going to make a denominator larger, and therefore our percentage is going to go down. Yeah. So we're doing really good. We're about number 4 in the state at this time, behind Hood River, Multnomah, and Washington. So we're really doing a really good job. I was on a call earlier with some of my colleagues in rural counties, and some of them are struggling at 47%. So this is pretty much what I have for you at this time. Do you have any questions?
Commissioner Jacobson, any questions?
No questions for me. Just really happy to see that we're finally at a place where kids can get vaccinated. Really great to see that, and glad that we were able to move pretty quickly on that as a county, and be offering those services very shortly after it was passed. And I know we had to wait for the actual vaccine to get here as well. So just happy to see that we had a plan and we're able to provide that very quickly.
Good.
I will echo those thoughts. And Director Portal, thank you for this week's brief. And if you don't have anything to add, we'll let you get back to your other work and say thank you once again.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Okay, have a great week.
You too.
Next up, we have commissioner reports. And Commissioner Jacobson, do you have anything to share that we haven't already discussed?
I'm looking at my inbox. Is there anything I want to share? No, I don't think there is at this time. Thanks.
Public Information Director Miller, are you available for a moment, please?
Yes.
Okay. First off, we continue to get many calls at this office related to the short-term rental initiative that the voters passed, and we are working with staff to look at next steps in moving forward with that. And you have some updates. Hopefully, you could share with us from the county SDR page.
I do think we want folks to know, and I'll do a little screen share here, looking at the county's website. For a while now, we've had our short-term rental licensing page, which has provided that blow-by-blow through time, especially as you were developing the licensing program. We would put information there so folks could get updated. Public input would go there, continues to go there. So as this measure has passed and this whole situation is under review, we're putting that information there. So I think that is at this time where individuals can look for any updates that are happening. And the licensing page for the sheriff's office, the civil division as a licensing authority, points here right now, but we are moving very quickly on this as far as the review process. So I imagine in time, and probably sooner than later, folks will see some updated information. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'll keep you on screen because we are now at the public comment.
Can I say one thing about
sure.
that, Commissioner
Sure,
Hall? Yeah, I was just going to add that, I think an important thing to keep in mind, because, I've had some feedback too, like it passed, so get on with it. We do have to wait till the election is certified. So I just want to kind of tell people that is a really critical step.
Which has not taken place yet.
Yeah, which has not taken place yet. So that is kind of the first thing to happen, and it's not just for this
Good point.
ballot measure, but, Commissioner Hall and I, when we were elected, we don't take office immediately after that election has to be certified. It kind of goes through a vetting process of its own. So I think after that certification happens, then there might be some, more dialogue or things that we have more information on, but just wanted to make sure that, everyone understood that's an important step with all elections that has to happen.
Certainly. Now, Mr. Miller, public comment time. And do we have anybody signed up for live public comment today?
Well, we do not, and I'm going to double check our attendees, but I do not see anyone who is signed up. Of course, use the raise your hand function if I'm missing anyone, but I don't see anyone there. And maybe while we're waiting to see if somebody does raise their hand, let's go back to the website. And kind of surprising to me, we only received one written input this week, and that is on the county website on the meeting page for today. And it is there in supporting documents. So Claire, I don't see any raised hands. There is your written input for the week. So I think that kind of wraps that up.
All right. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Hearing none, I will reiterate what has been mentioned earlier in the meeting, that as is tradition during the week of the Association of Oregon Counties yearly conference, next week's Wednesday meeting of the Board of Commissioners is canceled. We will meet again on Wednesday, November 24th, 2021, a virtual meeting once again, beginning at 10 a.m. Until then, we are in adjournment. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.